All right, buckle up, everybody, because we're about to take a deep dive into some seriously thought-provoking stuff. We're talking about the connection between faith and works, and our guidebook for this journey is the Book of James.
I think you'll find this one pretty interesting.
Oh, absolutely. And, you don't have to be a biblical scholar or even particularly religious to find this insightful.
Yeah, that's what's so cool about James.
It's really about how our beliefs, any beliefs, actually translate into action in our lives.
Or don't translate, and what that might say about us.
Right. It's like, are we walking the walk or just talking the talk?
Exactly. Even though it was written centuries ago, James still hits on these timeless questions about authenticity and integrity and, maybe even spotting hypocrisy, which is always relevant.
Totally. And speaking of mirrors, James doesn't waste any time holding one up to his audience. Right from the get-go, he condemns showing favoritism to the wealthy while ignoring the poor.
And he doesn't just frame it as like bad manners or something.
Oh, no, it's much deeper than that.
This is about going against God's will, a fundamental injustice.
It makes you think, doesn't it?
Oh, for sure. Like, where do we see this playing out in our own world today? I mean, think about it.
Are we still giving preferential treatment to those who seem successful, even if we don't know a thing about their character?
Right.
Like those snap judgments we make based solely on appearances?
All the time.
It's like that saying, don't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah, exactly. And James really lays it out in chapter 2, verse 5.
What he says.
He points out that God often chooses those who are poor in the eyes of the world, to be spiritually rich.
It's almost like we've got things completely backward.
Totally upside down.
If we're judging people just based on their outward appearance or possessions, it makes you question, what does it even mean to be rich or poor in the first place?
Exactly. It's a total, value inversion.
And then James takes this whole idea of action versus belief even further with that line that everyone knows, faith without deeds is dead.
Man, he doesn't hold back.
Talk about a mic drop moment. Right?
Yeah, seriously.
But is he being too harsh, or is there some deeper truth hidden in there?
I think it's meant to be provocative, definitely.
Oh, for sure.
A wake-up call,
Yeah.
He uses this really vivid example. Imagine telling someone who's freezing cold to stay warm, but you don't actually do anything to help them.
Right.
Words without action are just empty.
It's like those thoughts and prayers debates that we see all over social media.
Totally.
Is it enough to just offer good intentions? Or is there some moral obligation to actually take action to do something?
And then he uses the example of demons in chapter 2, verse 19.
Oh, right.
He says even demons believe in God, but that belief obviously doesn't save them.
So it's not enough to just intellectually assent to something. You have to live it out.
Exactly.
Your actions have to reflect that belief.
It's about how that belief shows up in your life.
And to really drive this point home, James brings in some biblical heavy hitters, like Abraham.
Oh, yeah. Here we go.
Now, this is where things get interesting.
It gets real.
Because Abraham was willing to sacrifice his own son.
Heavy stuff.
Which on the surface seems like blind obedience.
Yeah, it's tough to wrap your head around for sure.
I mean, how do we reconcile that level of obedience with our modern ideas about ethics?
Yeah.
What are we supposed to take away from that story?
It's definitely complex, and people have been debating it for centuries.
Oh, yeah.
But I think James is using it to illustrate the kind of radical nature of true faith.
Okay.
Abraham was willing to sacrifice everything, even his own son, which showed that his faith wasn't just some intellectual exercise.
It was everything to him.
It was the driving force in his life.
Wow. And then he contrasts Abraham with Rahab, a prostitute who helped the Israelite spies,
Right.
even though it meant going against her own people.
And what's so interesting is that both Abraham and Rahab are held up as examples of righteousness,
Interesting.
not because of their social standing or their past, but because of their actions.
It really makes you think about who we label as good and who we label as bad.
Totally flips the script.
So their actions reveal their true character, regardless of where they came from or what they did for a living.
Exactly. It's about who you are at your core.
So James is saying that ultimately it's our deeds that matter, not just our words or beliefs.
Actions speak louder than words.
Well, that's right. It's about consistency. Like, one good deed might not mean much, but a consistent pattern of positive actions really shows who you are.
It's like building a reputation, but on a deeper level.
Exactly. Your actions over time reveal your true values, how deep your convictions run.
So we've talked about favoritism, the importance of deeds over words,
Right.
the extreme nature of true faith.
But James doesn't stop there.
Oh, no.
He also tackles those trials and temptations that I think we can all relate to on some level.
He goes there.
And what's interesting is that he encourages his readers to actually view trials as, get this, opportunities for joy.
Now, that's a perspective shift.
It might seem counterintuitive, but he suggests that these challenges can test our faith and ultimately strengthen it.
It's like, how do we respond when things get tough? Do we crumble or do we rise to the occasion?
But he also acknowledges that we all face temptation.
Oh, yeah.
That's just part of being human.
Part of the deal.
And this is where James gets really insightful, I think. He says that temptation doesn't come from God, but from our own desires.
Interesting.
He describes it as this process. Desire leads to sin, which ultimately leads to death.
So it's not about blaming external forces for our mistakes.
Right.
It's about taking ownership of our own choices.
Understanding the consequences that come with them.
It makes you think about those areas in your own life where you might be giving in to temptation, maybe without even realizing it.
That's a good point. What are those patterns and habits that are holding us back?
And then, there's that whole section on the power of the tongue.
Ooh, yeah, the tongue.
James uses some pretty vivid imagery here, comparing it to a rudder on a ship or a spark that can set a whole forest on fire.
He's really emphasizing the impact our words can have.
Both positive and negative.
Think about the power of gossip or online negativity. Even just a careless remark can have a lasting effect.
Definitely. And, he doesn't shy away from calling out hypocrisy. He even says that with the same tongue we use to praise God, we also curse people.
It's like he's saying, do your words match your values?
A good question to ask ourselves, for sure.
So we've covered favoritism, deeds over words, the nature of temptation, and the power of our speech. But James isn't done yet. He also dives into this tricky topic of wealth and possessions.
Buckle up.
This is where he really gets fired up.
Oh, yeah.
In chapter 5, he addresses the rich who hoard their wealth, exploit workers, live in luxury while others are suffering.
He's not mincing words.
Not at all. But what's interesting is he's not condemning wealth itself, right?
Right.
It's more about how that wealth is used and what effect it can have on our hearts.
Exactly. He's saying the pursuit of worldly riches can blind us to what truly matters.
Compassion, generosity, justice.
It's a question of where our priorities lie. What are we truly investing in?
And he reminds us that we will be held accountable for how we treat those who are most vulnerable in society. He says the cries of the workers who were cheated out of their wages have reached the ears of God.
Powerful imagery.
So if the pursuit of worldly wealth can lead to this kind of spiritual corruption, what's the antidote? What does James offer as a path to true fulfillment?
Well, he puts a lot of emphasis on patience and steadfastness.
Okay.
He uses the analogy of a farmer patiently waiting for the harvest, enduring the changing seasons, trusting in that natural process of growth.
So it's about taking a long-term perspective, not getting caught up in immediate gratification or short-sighted gains.
It's about recognizing that true fulfillment comes from aligning ourselves with something larger than ourselves.
Whether that's our faith, our values, a sense of purpose, something that transcends our own individual needs.
Okay, so we've covered hypocrisy.
Deeds over words.
Dangers of wealth.
And the importance of patience. What else does James have in store for us on this whirlwind tour of practical spirituality?
Well, he tackles this very human struggle, conflict, and quarreling,
Oh, yeah.
He suggests that these often stem from our own desires and our internal battles.
So it's not always about external circumstances. It's about those conflicts we all face within ourselves.
Exactly. And he reminds us that true peace doesn't come from getting everything we want, but from aligning ourselves with God's will, seeking his guidance.
It's about surrendering control, trusting in something bigger than ourselves,
And finding peace within.
even amidst the chaos of life.
He encourages us to resist the devil, draw near to God, purify our hearts. It's a call to self-reflection, spiritual growth, cultivating humility.
Resisting the temptations of pride and arrogance.
Right.
And this ties in nicely with his discussion of humility and boasting.
Oh, yeah.
He warns against boasting about our plans for the future, reminding us we don't even know what tomorrow holds.
Our lives are but a mist, he says.
Appearing for a little while and then vanishing. It's a powerful image,
It is.
a reminder of our human limitations and how important it is to live in the present moment.
To appreciate what we have now.
So instead of getting caught up in our own self-importance and grand plans, it's about surrendering those ego-driven desires,
Recognizing that there's a bigger picture at play.
one that we may not fully comprehend.
It's a call to humility, to faith, recognizing that we're not in control of everything.
And sometimes the best course of action is to simply surrender and trust.
So we've talked about hypocrisy, deeds over words,
The dangers of wealth,
patience, conflict resolution.
humility, trusting in a higher power.
Is there anything else this little book of James throws at us?
Oh, there's more. He also addresses a very human struggle that's as relevant today as it was back then.
What's that?
Taming the tongue.
Yes, the tongue. Always a challenge.
I think we can all relate to the power of words to build up or tear down.
It's a double-edged sword for sure.
So what kind of insights does James offer on this topic?
Well, he uses some vivid analogies to illustrate the power of the tongue,
Okay.
comparing it to a bit in a horse's mouth that controls the whole animal or a small rudder that steers a large ship.
So even though it's a small part of the body, it has a huge impact
A disproportionate impact for sure.
on our direction and our ability to navigate life's challenges.
And then he describes the tongue as a fire that can set a whole forest ablaze.
Emphasizing its potential for both destruction and purification.
You didn't sugarcoat it.
So if the tongue is this powerful, how do we tame it?
How do we make sure that our words are used for good?
That's the million-dollar question.
James suggests that taming the tongue is one of the most difficult challenges we face as humans.
Really?
He states that no human being can fully tame the tongue.
Wow.
He calls it a restless evil full of deadly poison.
So it's not about achieving perfect speech,
No.
but more about recognizing the potential danger of our words.
And striving to use them wisely.
With compassion.
He acknowledges the inherent duality of the tongue.
How so?
He points out that with it, we praise God and curse people.
Both of whom are made in God's likeness.
It's a powerful reminder that our words can be both a blessing and a curse.
That we have a responsibility to use them carefully.
It all comes back to consistency.
Making sure that our words align with the goodness and purity we strive for in our hearts.
James emphasizes that true wisdom is demonstrated not just through words, but through actions as well.
It's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Exactly. And this ties back to his earlier point about faith and works.
It all connects.
James is consistently challenging us to live out our beliefs, let our actions speak louder than our words, cultivate humility, compassion, integrity.
Okay, so we've delved into the power of the tongue.
The importance of letting our actions speak for themselves.
What other nuggets of wisdom does James offer in this whirlwind tour of practical spirituality?
He spends a good amount of time discussing two contrasting types of wisdom.
Okay, let's unpack that.
Earthly wisdom and heavenly wisdom.
What are the characteristics of each type of wisdom and how can we tell the difference?
James describes earthly wisdom as being characterized by bitter envy, selfish ambition, boasting, denial of the truth.
It's a wisdom that leads to disorder, conflict, ultimately every evil practice.
It sounds a lot like what we might call toxic behavior today.
It does, doesn't
Yeah.
it? It's self-serving, ego-driven, prioritizes personal gain over the well-being of others.
A wisdom that breeds division and undermines genuine community.
In contrast, heavenly wisdom sounds quite different.
Oh, yeah. Jokic describes it as being pure, peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere.
Those are some powerful qualities. It sounds like a wisdom that leads to harmony, justice, genuine connection with others.
He emphasizes that those who sow in peace, meaning those who embody this heavenly wisdom, reap a harvest of righteousness.
Yeah, so it's not about being passive or avoiding conflict altogether,
No,
but about approaching disagreements with a spirit of peacemaking.
seeking resolutions that benefit everyone involved.
It's about cultivating a mindset of abundance rather than scarcity.
Recognizing that we can all thrive when we work together and support each other's well-being.
Okay, so we've explored these characteristics of earthly and heavenly wisdom and the importance of aligning ourselves with the latter.
So the question becomes, how do we cultivate this kind of wisdom in our daily lives?
What are some practical ways we can make that happen?
James doesn't give us a specific set of instructions, but he does offer some guiding principles. He emphasizes humility, compassion, forgiveness.
A willingness to learn from our mistakes.
It's an ongoing process.
Self-reflection, growth, striving to align our thoughts, words, and actions with the highest good.
And he reminds us that this isn't a solitary pursuit.
We're called to support each other on this journey.
Offer encouragement, accountability, guidance along the way.
It's about building a community of support, a network of individuals who are committed to living out these principles and helping each other stay on track.
And this brings us back to the beginning of our deep dive.
where James addressed favoritism.
He called out those who showed preferential treatment to the wealthy while neglecting the poor,
Emphasizing that true faith is demonstrated through our actions.
and how we treat those in need.
It's a powerful reminder that our faith, our beliefs, should be reflected in how we treat every single person.
Regardless of their social status, wealth, background,
It's about recognizing the inherent dignity and worth of every human being.
and treating each other with respect, kindness, compassion.
So it's not just about avoiding blatant discrimination or prejudice.
It's about actively seeking out ways to help those who are marginalized, struggling.
Being intentional in our actions, using our resources, our influence to create a more just and equitable world.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here. From hypocrisy and the power of the tongue,
To the different types of wisdom.
the importance of treating everyone with dignity and respect.
What are some key takeaways from this deep dive into the book of James so far?
I think one of the most important takeaways is that true faith is not passive. It's not just about believing certain things, attending religious services.
It's about putting our beliefs into action, living out our values in every area of our lives.
Walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
James provides a practical roadmap for how to do that, offering guidance on how to navigate relationships, handle conflict, use our words wisely, manage our resources responsibly.
All those everyday challenges we face.
He challenges us to examine our motivations, to be honest with ourselves about our shortcomings.
To actively work towards bridging that gap between our beliefs and our actions.
He reminds us that true wisdom comes not from pursuing selfish ambition or worldly gain,
But from aligning ourselves with a higher purpose.
something bigger than ourselves.
And that's where true fulfillment lies.
And what I find so inspiring is that he emphasizes that this is not a solo mission. We are called to support each other along the way, offer encouragement, hold each other accountable.
Create a community where everyone feels valued and respected.
It's about recognizing our interconnectedness,
Understanding that our actions have an impact on those around us.
striving to create a world where everyone can thrive.
That's a powerful vision.
Wow, so much to unpack here. It's amazing how relevant these ancient teachings are to our modern lives.
It really is.
It's a testament to the enduring power of wisdom.
The importance of continually seeking guidance on how to live a meaningful life.
And it all comes down to this. Are we living in a way that reflects our deepest values? Are we making choices that contribute to a better world?
Those are questions worth pondering.
Okay, so we've explored the wisdom of James, but there's one more crucial point he makes.
He reminds us that we actually have a responsibility to help those who have strayed from the truth.
Oh, interesting.
To, gently guide them back to the right path. It's like offering a hand up, not a push down.
Right. Meeting people where they are.
With compassion, understanding, rather than judgment.
And what's remarkable is the impact he attributes to this. He says, whoever turns a sinner from the error of their way will save them from death and cover over a multitude of sins.
Yeah, it's a pretty powerful statement.
It suggests that even these small acts of kindness and guidance can have a much bigger ripple effect
Yeah, it's not just about the individual.
on the whole community.
It's about recognizing that potential for redemption in everyone,
Creating a culture of grace and restoration.
where people feel safe to admit their faults, seek help without fear of shame or rejection.
It makes you think about those times in your own life when you might have stumbled or lost your way. Wouldn't it have been amazing to have someone there to offer support and guidance without judgment?
It would have made a world of difference.
And it challenges us to think about how we can be that source of support for others, to be a beacon of hope who offers encouragement, understanding, rather than criticism or condemnation.
Lead by example.
So after this deep dive into the book of James, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from this? What's that nugget of wisdom that you really want to stick with them?
I think the biggest takeaway is that true faith is not passive. It's not about passively believing certain things or going through the motions of religious rituals. It's about embodying those beliefs in every aspect of our lives, letting our actions speak louder than our words.
It's about that alignment between what we say we believe and how we actually live our lives.
Yeah.
It's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk, right?
Exactly. And what I love about James is that he provides such a practical roadmap for doing just that. He offers guidance on how to navigate relationships, handle conflict, use our words wisely, manage our resources responsibly.
All those everyday challenges.
Yeah, exactly.
And he doesn't sugarcoat it.
No, he keeps it real.
He challenges us to look in the mirror, be honest with ourselves about our shortcomings.
And to actively work towards bridging that gap between our beliefs and our actions.
He reminds us that true wisdom comes not from chasing after selfish ambition or worldly gain, but from aligning ourselves with a higher purpose, something bigger than ourselves. And that's where true fulfillment lies.
That's the key.
And what I find so inspiring is that he emphasizes this is not a solo mission. We're meant to support each other along the way, offer encouragement, hold each other accountable,
Right.
create a community where everyone feels valued and respected.
Exactly. We're in this together.
It's about recognizing our interconnectedness, understanding that our actions have an impact on those around us, striving to create a world where everyone can thrive.
That's the goal.
That's a powerful vision.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the book of James, what's one provocative thought you'd like to leave our listener with? Something to ponder? Maybe even spark some inspiration to take action.
James repeatedly urges his readers to look in the mirror.
Yeah,
Honestly assess their lives. See if their actions match their words.
it's a good practice.
So my challenge to you, the listener, is this. What area that we discussed today resonated with you the most? What struck a chord?
Yeah, what really stood out?
And what's one small step you can take, starting today, to put that wisdom into practice?
It might not be a grand gesture, a complete life overhaul. It could be something as simple as speaking a kind word to a stranger, offering a helping hand to someone in need,
Exactly. It doesn't have to be huge.
making a conscious effort to be more mindful of your words, your actions.
It's about recognizing that we all have the power to make a difference, that even seemingly small actions can ripple outwards.
Creating positive change.
In our own lives and the lives of those around us, it's about taking that first step, however small it may seem.
So let's all go out there and be the change we want to see in the world. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the book of James. Until next time.
As we're wrapping up this deep dive into James, one thing that really struck me was how he tackles this idea of favoritism. It's not just some abstract ethical principle, right? If you think about the historical context, the early Christian community was made up of people from all walks of life.
Oh, absolutely.
Rich and poor, slaves and free people.
A real mix. There was this huge risk of division and inequality creeping in. It seems like James is addressing that head on.
You're spot on. By calling out favoritism so forcefully, he's basically laying the foundation for a community where your social status doesn't define your worth
Right.
or determine where you belong. It's a pretty radical idea, especially in the context of, the Roman Empire.
It really is. And this whole idea of creating a just and equitable community, it ties into his later discussion of wealth and possessions.
Yeah, it's all connected.
It's not just about individual morality. It's about creating a social order where the most vulnerable are protected and everyone has an opportunity to thrive.
And that's what's so inspiring about James, He's not just offering these vague spiritual concepts or platitudes. He's offering a blueprint for building a better world.
A world where faith isn't just empty words or rituals, but concrete actions.
That make a real difference.
So it's not just about personal transformation, it's about social transformation as well.
Absolutely. It's recognizing that our individual actions are all interconnected. And by working together, we can create this ripple effect that leads to more justice, more compassion, more equality.
That's powerful. It makes you think about how you can use your own, talents and resources.
Your influence, yeah.
To contribute to that vision.
Right. It might be through, volunteering your time.
Or donating to a good cause.
Speaking out against injustice.
Or just being more mindful of our everyday interactions.
Yeah.
It's about finding those opportunities, whether they're big or small.
To put those values into action.
Yeah, it's what does it look like to live out our faith?
Mm-hmm.
Not just in our private lives, but also our public lives. What does it mean to be a doer of the word in our families, our communities, our workplaces, even our political systems?
And I think that's the question James is asking us.
That's a good one.
He's not giving us all the answers, but he is giving us a framework.
Wow.
A set of principles to guide us as we navigate the complexities of life and strive to create a world that reflects our values.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into James, what's the one thing you hope our listener walks away with?
I hope they're inspired to take a good, hard look at their own lives.
To really look in the mirror.
And ask themselves, where am I falling short?
Where's the disconnect?
Between my beliefs and my actions. What's one small step I can take, starting today, to bridge that gap?
Because it's not about perfection. It's about progress. It's about taking those small steps, one after another, that lead to a more meaningful life.
It's about making that conscious effort to live out those values, embody those qualities of humility, compassion, justice, and integrity that James so eloquently describes.
And, who knows? Those small steps might inspire others to do the same, creating a ripple effect that goes way beyond just ourselves.
It's contagious.
So, as we close out this episode, let me leave you with this thought. What if each of us committed to putting just one of these principles into practice today? What kind of impact could we have?
That's worth thinking about.
It's a challenge worth embracing. Thanks for joining us, and until next time.